Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Jason Cappuccino of Sashes&Scripts, and today we will be talking about one of the most important and one of the most impressive decades in the history of pageantry, and I'm talking about the 1990s. But before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell for more pageant-related news and updates. I believe that the 1990s, the years 1990 to 1999, is one of the most impressive and one of the best pageant decades in the history of pageantry. And that is because of several factors, mainly the quality of production, the quality of winners, and what they have achieved after their pageant careers, what they have achieved during their reigns. And most importantly, I believe this is the last decade where the prestige of pageantry is at its peak, because I think and I believe that starting the year 2000s onwards, unti-unti nang nababawasan yung international prestige ng pageant, and those were the years, I believe, that the Miss Universe, Miss International, and the Miss World pageants had a huge, respectability in the international stage. And today, pag-uusapan natin kung bakit ang dekada ito, why 1990s is an important, decade in the history of pageants. Kung ano yung mga nangyari that brought about changes and evolution in terms of what we look for a winner, what we look for in a pageant production, what we look for in terms of prizes, and all the things that made pageantry relevant during the decade, and at the same time made pageantry, at its peak prestige. There are three things that I'd like to point out, and the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about the 1990s is the quality of its winners. Because during this decade, we saw that there is an equal balance between the importance of being commercial and physically beautiful, and at the same time, the ability to speak and the ability to communicate. Ito yung isa sa mga hallmarks ng mga winners of the 1990s that hindi mo maitatanggi na kapag kinausap mo sila, they have magnetic personalities, kaya kanilang i-draw in with their beauty, and at the same time hold on to your attention when they speak, when they communicate, when they talk about passion projects, about their work in the philanthropy and the charity na areas. And pag enumerate natin, pag ilista natin yung sino yung mga beauty queens na nagmarka during this decades, of course, hindi mawawala sa listahan si Aishwarya Rai, who was at one point being hailed as one of, if not the most beautiful woman in the world. But that doesn't mean that hanggang ganda lang siya. During her reign and even after her reign, she made sure that she was able to give back to society, give back to humanity with a lot of philanthropy work. She was able to manage a career as well as a family life after her win. And hindi rin mawawala sa listahan ang Miss World 1993, which is Lisa Hanna of Jamaica, who after her reign went on to public service. At some point in her career, she was Ministry of Youth and Culture for several years. I believe it was between the years 2000. It was in the mid 2000s, 2010s. So it means that even after their wins, they were all able to create something out of themselves. Hindi mo rin mawawala dito si Miss Universe 1998, Wendy Fitzwilliam of Trinidad and Tobago, who herself is a multi-hyphenate. Nakita naman natin how she was able to, to navigate her career post-pageantry, because she finished her law degree, took the bar and passed it. She became a recording artist, she became a host, she became an actress, and makikita mo with her resume that she is a multi-hyphenate. So, in terms of the quality of winners, talagang wala kang masasabi sa mga winners ng 1990s. And I'd also like to add and include, Mupule Kwalagobe of Botswana, who was Miss Universe in 1999, who later on became a United Nations HIV/AIDS ambassador for her country. And there's a lot of other pageant winners in the 90s who were able to transition their pageant careers into successful careers in either entertainment and showbiz, politics and public service, and other fields of entertainment and other fields outside the realm of pageantry and politics. Some became lawyers, doctors. Some pursued, quiet family life after. And hindi mo maiaalis na ma-impress sa mga winners of the 90s because they themselves have built careers outside of pageantry. There's also a video that me and my friend Mark Sobrahani have filmed earlier on. I will link the link to that video in the description below para mapanood nyo kung sino yung 10 mga women from the 90s who really created impact during the decade. Now, another thing that I'd like to point out about the 1990s was that making it to the semifinalists, making it to the pool of semifinalists is not easy. In the 1990s, there is no token placements. Unlike today, where you get a top 25 or a top 20, in the 1990s, yung top 12 or top 15 in the 1980s were narrowed down even further to just a top 10. Nauna ang Miss World na ipatupad yung top 10 na selection before Miss Universe, but you can see how you need to be really competitive to make it into that small pool of women who will compete for the title. So dahil mas maliit yung semifinalist na kinukuha into the semifinal round, mas competitive ngayon yung mga girls na sumasali at nakakapasok sa top 10. So wala kang makikitang token placement, wala kang makikitang sinasabing participation na placement into the semis. Imagine, missing the top 10 by 100th or 1,000th of a point. Ganun siya kapatayan in terms of how women compete and are really, really aggressive to make it to the top 10. And imagine also the Philippines ranking at number 12 for Jem Padilla or number 11 with suddenly I'm forgetting her name. Wait, mental block here. Abigail Arenas. Sorry about that. Sorry, Abby. So imagine yung kung gaano kaliit, kanarrow yung points that you only need a 0.01 or 0.025 just to make it to the top 10. Ganun kanarrow, ganun kasayang, ganun kaliit yung point that you could have made a difference in the top 10. So this is why in the course of the of pageants during the 90s, importante ultimo yung pinakakaliitang points because it could really spell a top 4 placement versus a top 3 placement where you can have a chance at the crown. So ganun siya ka-competitive. And being in an environment where you don't buy into the semi-finalists, you are really being squeezed out in terms of competitiveness and making it through the semis, making it through the finals based on merit and performance alone, in which for fans who grew up in that type of environment and competitiveness, napaka-importante yung meron yung napaka-importante yung maipasok mo ang sarili mo in the semis because of merit alone. That is why for a lot of older pageant fans like I am, we are not as we're not a big of a fan of paid voting systems where you make semis because you have the machinery, you have the budget, you have the resources for it. Another thing that importanteng mai-point out natin with the 1990s is the quality of production. If you look at Miss Universe 1999, Miss Universe 98, makikita mo that the culture of the venue is being reflected into the production of the pageants. Same thing in Miss World when it was held in Sun City, South Africa, or in Bangalore, India in 1996. So, napakarami mong makikitang richness in terms of culture, in terms of traditions na nagagawang itawid through the pageant in the entire course of its production. And this is one of the things that because of modernization, hindi masyado na natin nakikita ngayon in the 2000s or in the 2010s na decade. And we are hoping that in the 2020s, maibalik yung ganong klaseng production value nang maramdaman din natin na kasama natin yung mga candidates na nag-compete doon sa mismong venue. So that we experience, the culture, the richness of what the pageant and the venue has to offer. And that is, one of the things that nawala in the course of pageantry, in the course of the evolution of pageants, in the hopes of modernizing the way that the contest is being held. The contests are being held. Pardon that. So yun sana yung one of the biggest lessons, one of the things that we could also see again in pageants. And imagine, the opening number is about a parade of nations where in just, several minutes you are taken, all over the globe, over 110 or sometimes 130 countries all over the world, seeing their culture firsthand with their costumes. So isa yun sa mga particulars that we really had a taste on in the 90s that we no longer have a taste on nowadays. Another thing that I'd like to point out about the 90s is the quality of judges that we used to have in that decade. Because in the 90s we've seen names like Evander Holyfield, Cheyenne, Nadia Comaneci, Oscar de la Renta, Stephanie Seymour, Marcus Schenkenberg, Estelle Getty of the Golden Girls na fame. We also had Carolina Herrera as a judge, and even the Princess Maria of Bourbon became a judge early in the Miss Universe in the early 90s. So dun sa kalidad mismo ng hurado, marami kang makikita na big names, mga pangalan na may napatunayan sa mundo ng sports, in the world of showbiz, in the world of fashion, in the world of entertainment. So hindi lang tipong designers lang ang nakikita natin or mga social media celebrities ang nakikita nating judges for the pageants in those years. You would see Cool Ledesma, Josie Natori, and even Oscar de la Renta and Carolina Herrera sitting as judges in the judging panel. And imagine kung if you are a candidate and makikita mo that the people who are judging you is someone like, let's say, Nadia Comaneci, the first gymnast, I believe, who scored a perfect 10 in the Olympics. Di ba parang nakakagaan ng or nakaka-boost ng moral that that whoever wins the title is someone who truly deserves it. Because you have a set of judges who are accomplished in their own fields. And being in a competition where the judges comes from different areas of life, different fields, and different industries, parang magkakaroon ka ngayon ng sense of worth that if you make even just the top 6 or the top 10 of the pageant, it is already a huge achievement because the people who put you there, who judge you to be in the top 10 or top 6 or top 3, are judges who are who have proved their worth and merit in their particular fields. So ganun kagaling, ganun ka diverse yung judging panel in the 90s. And then let's also not forget to mention that in the 90s, ang gaganda ng mga papremyo. Yung mga papremyo, hindi siya paswelduhan na tipo. Na you get like really financial prizes from sponsors. I remember that in 1994, when Rhea Tunzi of Greece topped the preliminary swimsuit competition, she got a prize for $10,000 from the swimsuit sponsor. Same thing when Minorca during the finals topped the swimsuit competition, she also got I believe a 10,000 US dollar na gift. And even someone as Verushka Ramirez and Miriam Kiambao for their topping the swimsuit for Verushka, and Miriam having the Clearol Herbal Essences Award. They also got like around 1,000 to 10,000 US dollars in terms of their cash prize for those special winnings. So imagine niyo yung mga prizes na yon. Wait, I think it was Wendy Fitzwilliam who got the swimsuit prize. Let me double check on that, and I'm just gonna post it on this video later on an insert. Now, of course, the 90s din gave us a lot of knowledge in the terms of cash prizes and winnings. I remember reading a news report saying that Chelsea Smith, during the 90s when she won Miss Universe, her prizes and winnings amounted to almost $500,000. So, and these are gifts from sponsors and cash prizes from sponsors and the organization themselves. So, napakalaki yung earnings, and at the same time, napakalaki yung boost sa moral, yung boost sa career ng mga winners na ito. That's why later on, you would see na ang dami sa mga 1990s na mga winners natin, very successful in their own fields. And of course, hindi rin natin pwedeng pag-usapan ang 1990s without the changes that the 1990s brought na hindi natin nakita during the 2000s. In the 2000s, it has become like sort of a Latina domination for making the semis, and there are years where we see Asian shutdown or not seeing enough diversity in their mix. The 1990s was sort of a herald, a champion for diversity, because we've seen a lot of semifinalists coming from different ethnicities, different races, different backgrounds, different colors, different ideologies. And isa sa mga tumatak sa atin na mga girls pushing that glass ceiling for Black Europeans or Afro-Europeans is Lola Odisoga of Finland, who was second runner-up in Miss Universe in 1996, and Dani Mendez, who was Miss Italia 1996 and competed in Miss Universe later on in 1997. And what they did was they made it acceptable, or they made it known that women of color can also win European titles. So before we had all of these black beauties from Europe, we first had these two ladies who really brought about change in terms of representation and visibility. We also had the first black-to-black win in Miss Universe. Doon natin nakita yung pagkapanalo ni Mapule and ni Wendy, which was really a almost impossibility the years prior. And then we also have a Miss World winner who was very vocal about her sexual assault. Her name is Linor Abargil of Israel, who won Miss World in 1996 in Bangalore, India. And during her during her reign, she was open about how it is to be a victim of sexual assault, and she was a survivor because of that. And after, even during her reign, she was pushing for justice for what happened to her when she was sexual assaulted in Italy. And after her reign, she later became she later became a TV personality, but continuously improved herself and learned and went to law school, and is now a lawyer in Tel Aviv. So imagine that kind of message where you are able to encourage women to speak out, and not allow abusers to get away with something as huge of a crime as this. And we also know yung mga contributions, yung mga naging work ni na Aishwarya, and especially also of Jacqueline Aguilera, when it comes to philanthropy through the Miss World pageant. And of course, the 1990s also brought about women empowering women, before it even became a buzzword, before even it became a a politicized topic. Ngayon, makikita mo na yung karamihan na marami sa mga 1990s women na winners have become national directors of pageants themselves. And ito yung isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit mas successful ngayon ang mga pageants, because it is run by women for women. And if you look at the international organizations, the four of the biggest pageants in the world, they are all spearheaded by women, and that speaks a lot. And that is something that we saw in the winners from the 90s na ginagawa na nila ngayon in the 2000s, in the 2020s. The 1990s arguably is one of it's one of those decades na dito yung nag-peak na ng todo ang pageantry, coming from a very very successful 80s. Ang difference lang kasi ng 80s and the 90s was that the 80s was very European centric in the terms of women that they choose. They choose as winners. Unlike in the 90s na mas nagkaroon ng cultural diversity, nagkaroon ng racial diversity in the women who wins, women who are crowned, or women who even may just makes it into the semis. So hindi natin matatawaran that the 1990s was a landmark for pageantry, because ito yung standards ng mga pageant aficionados ngayon who witness that decade up until now. At masasabi on my experience na the 90s was one of the best, if not the best decade, modern decades in pageantry, if we are going to judge it based on the past 40 years. I am a millennial. I've witnessed pageants from the late 80s, growing up in the provinces from the late 80s to the 90s, where I truly became a pageant lover, an aficionado. And among all those years na I was able to yung nakasubaybay ako sa pageantry, nakita ko talaga yung impact ng 90s, because it is the decade where we saw very 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 strong winners, very strong production, very diverse set of judges. And what all of the people in the 90s, winners, non-winners, semi-finalists, do after their pageant careers was over, they were able to transition well from pageantry to different industries afterwards. So for those na mga lumaki in the 2000s, in the 2010s, and now in the 2020s, I hope that you would able to do your research, look at the pageants in the 1990s and see talaga the kind of entertainment value, the kind of cultural significance, the kind of quality that the 90s brought in terms of pageantry. That's all I want to say about the topic. I hope that medyo naliwanagan tayo lahat about how important and how impressive the 90s was. And I hope to see you again soon in the next video. Bye everyone. Take care.